All right, welcome in. We are back, Suite Level Access in our studios. I am your host, Mitch Mortaza, alongside Alex Saxon. And we've got one guest. We've got Jessica Salazar, who many believe will be our league MVP when it's all said and done. So we'll talk to her about that. Certainly we'll talk about the Atlanta-Denver game, which we just got back from. Jessica had an impactful role in that game and certainly a shutout, which is something none of us expected. That defense is for real, but I think that was Denver had a little something to do with that too in the way of play calling. I think that was some of the worst play calling I've ever seen from an offensive coordinator, but we'll get into that in a second.
Burn.
Ooh, burn!
Oh, big show. You've got, we're going to talk about Fan Pass because that seems to be a lot of questions around that. As we talked about last week, we have a mid-season package offering for fans now, that want to tune in. Yes, you can still watch all the previous games on replay, but it's a mid-season package. You came in midway, so you're going to pay half the price at $39.99. What's really important to remember is that you don't get 2 free tickets with this package. Everybody's bummed about that, but that's just how it is.
Should have got on it earlier.
Yeah. Fan Pass come along real nicely. We've added some more functionality within the games, and it's evolving. So it's a fun platform to be a part of, and certainly as we get down to the playoffs and the X Cup, you're going to want Fan Pass. And that leads me to the X Cup. So as you guys know, we originally were September 10th. We moved to September 9th, which is Friday night. But now we have conflicts with high school football. And if you know anything about high school football in Texas on Friday nights, it is not something to go up against.
It's a big deal.
Our whole production company, our television production company, is actually deeply embedded in high school football. So all that being said, we are moving back to our original date, and we're going to sit tight. September 10th, Saturday, September 10th at HEB Center will be our first ever X Cup 22. We will be hosting a live XLeague awards ceremony on Friday night. That's September 9th. Okay, so that's a great black tie award ceremony where you get to see some of your favorite athletes and teams. We'll be honoring, obviously, Offensive Player of the Year, Defensive Player of the Year, League MVP, who we may have on the show today, Offensive and Defensive Teams of the Year, and so on and so forth. Just a ton of great awards. It's an opportunity to see your favorite athletes, away from the game. So that's a fun night. We'll be releasing more information about that shortly. We get in early. I think we're slated to be there Tuesday.
We're going to get a little bit of vacation time. We might have our own spa day.
I don't know about vacation. Okay. I think we're going to be pretty busy with everything going on, but we'll record SLA. We'll record SLA in Austin. We'll be at a barbecue house doing it live on location.
Hell yeah.
So I think that's slated for Thursday leading up. So it's going to be a crazy week for us in Austin, Texas. I think some of us are even staying after for a little fun in the sun on Sunday. So we'll see how that works out.
There's our spa day.
We'll bring it to the fans for sure. So look, we've got Salazar on. We talked about Fan Pass, X Cup, September 10th. Now let's briefly talk about the playoff picture. Okay. Now, we've got some graphics here for you guys. In first place is Seattle, obviously. Going into the August 6th matchup with Chicago, they are 1-0. They have a point differential of 57. So unless they just absolutely lay an egg, Seattle's going to be in a very good position to get in, right? Atlanta just went to 2-0. Their point differential, I believe, is 44. So they're assured. In fact, at 2-0, that was their playoff berth. They've stamped their seal. They're in. What's interesting now is Chicago. Chicago's point differential is 6. That leaves them very vulnerable should they lose this game against Seattle. And I'll tell you why. Because Austin is 15, plus 15, and I should back up here a second for fans. Because we're playing so little games this year, point differential is the number one tiebreaker. We knew going in we're going to have teams potentially at 2-0, 1-1. Those are going to be the teams in contention for the playoffs. Mm-hmm. So the number one tiebreaker, and that's why you've seen a lot of these games when they've been in hand, teams have still racked up points because they know at the end of the season, point differential is going to be the determining factor.
You cannot let off the gas pedal at all.
No, hence 80 to whatever that was,
yeah.
82 to...
I don't think there's any time to be subbing in your second strings or anything.
Which is all the more surprising that the Atlanta game, it's very tough to hold a team in this league to 0 points. It is a 50-yard field. To not score a single point is outrageous.
I mean, we gave them some credit, but there were a couple times I was like, they're right there. They're right there.
Hey, that final drive, they're at the 4-yard line, and Kayla Weller, I think, back-to-back sacks of Jessica Poole kind of sealed their fate there. But getting back to the playoffs real quick, so it's really going to get down to Austin, L.A., and Chicago possibly, vying for the final 2 spots. One person's going to be the outside looking in, and right now that looks to be Los Angeles because they're at negative 19 in the point differential.
Aye.
So their final game of the season, August 13th, right here in Los Angeles, when they battled the Mexico national team, which we don't know. From all accounts it is a very good team. So Los Angeles is going to have a tough time. But hey, if they can't compete against Los Angeles, they have an opportunity to up their point differential and possibly challenge someone like Chicago. Because if Chicago now comes out against Seattle and loses that game, and let's say they lose by double digits potentially, they could drop to negative 10, negative 12. That leaves the door wide open for Los Angeles. Mm-hmm. So it's a very interesting last couple weeks here because the next game, Seattle-Chicago, that is going to play a huge factor as to who goes. And then the following week, if Chicago loses to Seattle, that leaves the door open for Los Angeles to sneak into the playoffs. So every game is going to count going down the stretch here. Now, if you're Atlanta, you're sitting pretty right now. You're in. You don't have to worry about what happens the next couple of games. Seattle, because your point differential, even if you drop this one, you're sitting pretty right now. Mm-hmm. So really it comes down once again to Austin, Los Angeles, and Chicago. It'll be interesting. And then in this game, what did we take away from this Atlanta-Denver game? Again, I think it goes back taking nothing away from the Atlanta team and the defense. They didn't do anything that wowed you necessarily, Again, they're a great football team. I think they're going to challenge, obviously, for an X Cup. But I think Denver really laid an egg in their own home field. And I'll tell you why. Coming off that game film against Seattle, despite the score, people were encouraged by what they saw from Denver. Denver is a team that showed that they can move the sticks with Jessica Poole.
It looked like it had their team looked like they had potential. Like they're almost right there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, it's offensively, not only do you have potential, you have explosive weapons. Crystal Wright, with those jet sweeps and misdirection plays, really helped them in that Seattle game. And then they worked underneath to their tight ends very effectively. That's on the offensive side of the ball. Defensively, despite giving up 80 points in that second half, they showed what they can do. And, I don't blame Denver's defense as much because let's not forget they shut out Atlanta. I think Atlanta only scored 6 more points in the second half. So that's 2 quarters with 6 points. That's pretty good performance by your defense. Now your offense, how you don't score a single point, and it was so
right there every time.
But
just could not close it.
Well,
almost.
I don't even know that they could close it or not. It was a matter of they couldn't move the ball simply because it was so predictable.
Well, and I was also holding the ball.
The whole offense was predictable. You're talking about
they had 3 fumbles almost?
Well, Jessica Poole, when 9 out of 10 times your play call is for a quarterback keeper, any defensive coordinator worth its salt is going to adjust to that. And you saw, and I'd love to ask Jessica about this when we have her on a little bit later, at some point they were crowding the line of scrimmage. they were threatening Jessica Poole. They were saying, hey, listen, beat us with your arm. We don't think you can. And that's, as an offensive coordinator, I would have taken advantage of that. Crystal right on the outside, take a couple shots down the field.
I wonder if she actually trusts her own ability, because it's literally every time you'd see her get nervous, and then it's just another run from Jessica Poole. I wonder how many rushing yards she had.
Yeah, no,
because it seems like she gets frightened and she's like, oh shit, now what? Okay,
yeah,
I'll run the ball.
Look, their offensive, to your point earlier, their offense, from what I saw numbers last night, I was looking over the stats, they were pretty even, believe it or not, with Atlanta's offense. But as you said, they moved the ball between the 10s. Once they got closer in, that's when things went south on them, and I just, I think offensive play calling, had they had a more sophisticated approach, actually studied their own game film. Forget about Atlanta. Know the strengths of your own team. Hell, you've been working with them for how many months now? Why do you think Jessica Poole dropping back 8 out of 10 plays is going to win you a ball game? She's not there yet.
And also, too, I know they switched out Hardaway for Quintana at running back. Which I don't know if that's good. I don't know if that's bad, because when Hardaway did get the ball, she's breaking down walls. She's big, so I feel like that's something you can use right on that line of just getting those just easy 3-yard runs.
Yep. All you have to do against the team that you're outmatched by at any level of football, whether it's high school, college, or the NFL, is keep their offense on the sideline. And how do you keep their offense on the sideline? You have to hold on to the ball, which means you have to move the sticks. It doesn't matter if you're getting 3 yards a pop, because guess what? 3 times 4 is 12.
Hang on. I'm just checking your math on that. Yes. I got the same thing.
You only need 10.
Look at that math right there.
I'm terrible at math.
That's George Mason right there, Stephanie.
But even I know, all you need is 10 yards. And 3 yards a pop will get it. But,
moving the ball forward is a lot better than going backwards.
Absolutely. Look, and you can't, again, against a defense that has several veteran players like Atlanta, a defensive coordinator like Dane Robinson, who's been doing this a very long time, you have to do your homework. Mm-hmm. You have to come in, know their weaknesses. And for Atlanta, I think their weakness right now is their secondary. I think their front line is very formidable, certainly led by Jessica Salazar at middle linebacker. I don't know that I would necessarily run against them that much. I would expose their corners and their safeties. Mm-hmm. Callie Stanley's having a pretty good year thus far, but she could be gotten, as was shown in that first game.
If you got some height, use it.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw what Chicago did. Chicago, even though Atlanta really didn't show a lot in that Kansas City game that they were playing for Kansas City, you saw that they could be gotten in the secondary. So in the playoffs, I think they're going to, whoever they match up against, they'll probably be the number 1 seed, unless Seattle wins. So they'll play the number 4 seed, either Los Angeles or possibly Chicago. So at some point, somebody's got to see that, Atlanta can't be beat up front. You got to expose their secondary.
We're giving away all the secrets now.
Hey, listen,
you're like here's how you beat Atlanta.
Hey, any coach, all the coaches have my cell phone. Give me a call. With that being said, let's actually do this. Let's bring in our guest, and this is a young lady that has made a huge impression in a very short period of time. Jessica Salazar, your middle linebacker and running back for the Atlanta Empire. Welcome in, Jessica.
How's everyone doing?
So you're fresh out of a workout, is that right?
Yeah, fresh out of a workout.
The grind does not stop.
Walk us through what a workout looks like for Jessica Salazar.
Primarily in the season, it's more about HIIT, so high impact interval training. So I really like to get my heart rate up, because conditioning in this league is the number 1 most important thing. Such a fast-paced game. There's a lot of running, especially when you're playing both sides of the field. And when you're chasing down quarterbacks who have, good wheels on them, I mean, it'll get to you if you're not conditioned. So definitely interval training is the number 1 thing, and working with some power at the same time.
Now, you guys just played Denver. We just talked about, obviously the dominance of the defense, holding them out of the end zone 28-0. I mean, did you expect a shutout going into this game?
We didn't expect it, but we did set that goal. We actually did it. Our team is very tight. So we're really good at communicating. And so we have our own little defensive group chat. So we all decided to get on FaceTime, and we're doing our game predictions, and offense. We had the opportunity to be like, oh, this is our score prediction. So me being on both sides of the ball, I went and tattletaled to my defensive teammates. I was like, hey, offense is saying that defense is gonna Denver is gonna be putting this many points on the board. So I'm there sitting there like being the hype man, and Keon Harrison, she's like, you know what? Let's shut them out. And I was like, all right, bet, let's do it. Let's shut these girls out. And so it was pretty magical how it all went down. So we were focused on that. And when we saw that it was a reality and it was an actual thing that we could do, we were just honing in on it. So that was our victory. It wasn't necessarily the win. It was shutting them out.
So they straight up manifested that 0. They're like, yeah, this is going down.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like it.
It sounds like it. It sounds like it. Look, let's flip to the offensive side of the ball. You've got, I haven't had a chance to talk to anybody from the team much, with the exception of Dane Robinson. But how is your 19-year-old quarterback, Bailey Hodgins, taking over that locker room? I mean, is she somebody that's a leader at this point? Walk us through, what your impressions of her are as a fellow teammate.
She is absolutely 100% a leader, just naturally. She remains focused when times are tough. You could tell she has mental toughness. So no matter what's going on, she keeps her demeanor. When we're in the huddle, she captures your attention, and she also gives advice. So she has great vision. She has a ton of potential. So immediately she has earned the respect from all of the athletes, all of the teammates, and especially the coaches. I mean, they believed in her. And she did have some off-season training previously with the team. So I was probably one of the few people who had not had any experience with her previously, like the other teammates, and they were assuring me like, this girl's the thing, she's the real deal. And rest assured, she is the real deal. She's going to do amazing. I believe in her 100%.
And you're on both sides of the ball, so how tough is that to absorb a plan on both sides and be ready to execute? Because you get a lot of time at running back, and certainly we know you as a middle linebacker. But how tough is it to play both sides of the ball in this league?
It could be tough, but I think that I feel passionate about this sport. So I am a very humble athlete, and I take all criticism, and it's always something new to learn. So I try to absorb as much as possible. I recognize what my weaknesses are. So, and I mean, the coaches also tell me what my weaknesses are. So we work on that. We talk about it, and then we just continue to train on overcoming any type of obstacles. I mean, I love the game of football, and I love playing sports. I have a basketball background, so I'm used to the quick adjustments in a fast-paced environment. And the only tough thing about it is the conditioning. So as long as you get the conditioning out of the way, you can think clearly.
Yeah, conditioning, as you said, going both ways, almost 50-plus plays. That's a lot of football, and I understand why you're doing some cardio work now. So talk to us, getting back to the game. Alex and I were just discussing how Denver didn't manage to score a single point. I thought a lot of it was just the offensive play calling. How predictable was their offense?
We definitely knew what their strengths were and their weaknesses. We studied them. I mean, that's just what it is. We all came together. Coach Dane Robinson did an amazing job at saying, hey, this is what they're probably going to come out with and how to prepare us for it. So we definitely mastered our own defense to be prepared. We were expecting those tight ends to release, the guards to release. That's why they had me in the backfield, kind of reading what's going on, and which created a successful interception. But I mean, even with Jessica Poole just running the ball, she could have easily scored a touchdown because we were so spread out. That's the beauty about this game, this sport in particular, is that everybody's has such a huge role. So if it takes one person to miss their assignment, and then Jessica Poole could have been on the races to the touchdown. So I tip my hat off to Dane Robinson to keeping our culture. It's all about alignment, assignment, and effort. And we just maintained our own athletic discipline to keep doing our jobs. But I mean, they could have easily gotten in there if they had their own discipline. But we prepared. We definitely prepared. They had our very undivided attention, as I quote Dane Robinson says. They had our attention for sure.
And then one of the highlight plays of this game really was your hit down, I believe, on your side of the field. On top of that, walk us through the intensity of that. That was a decleater if I've ever seen one.
Yeah, I mean, in baseball, right? I play Little League baseball, and I love, I just love all sports. So it's like being in the batter's box, being up there against the pitcher. You got that sweet spot of the baseball bat. So if your form, everything is good, that ball will go. It's a home run. So that's how it felt when that hit landed. It was just the sweet spot. And I was able to just catch her in that one. And I noticed she tried to lower her shoulder. So when I see someone lowering their shoulder, I'm going to try to get lower than them. And it just everything connected at that point, and she just went. So that's why when I got up, I wasn't like, it didn't feel like I did like anything crazy. I didn't want to like go rowdy or anything, because we were still in the red zone. So we still had to focus, but I was like, I'm just doing my job. Here I am. I saw it. I saw the sweep. I was prepared for it because our defensive scheme was prepared for that sweep. So that was all me. I just snuck in there and I was able to land a good hit.
Well, I mean, that game's now behind you. You're at 2-0. Last I checked, your point differential was plus 44. That's only second to Seattle. They're at plus 57. So right now, how interested are you guys in that August 6th Seattle versus Chicago game? Or do you care about going in as the number one seed?
Our purpose is to be number one. So yeah, it'd be great to be number one, but at the same time, these top four teams, anything could happen. We're in the playoffs. We can be at number one and play the number 14 and still have if we're not on our game, it could still be a disappointing outcome. The number 4 team could win. We could be at number 4 and play the number 1 team and beat them. So it's going to be a very interesting game because these are 2 top level teams. So it's going to be very entertaining. We're very interested to see what they have to put out. But we are going to prepare for any team in the playoff at our full undivided effort and performance, because as I mentioned, I mean, the outcome doesn't affect Empire football. Empire has to prepare the way we've been preparing at our full capacity, regardless of what the outcome is for this upcoming game.
Yeah, and look, I mean, if you guys are the number 1 seed, you'll play the number 4 seed. That's assuming Chicago loses and Chicago drops to that 4 seed. So then you have 1 and 4 playing potentially Atlanta versus Chicago, and then you've got Seattle playing Austin. So either of those 2 games are very, very fascinating.
I think Atlanta, Chicago would be super interesting.
Yeah, they're both very, physical teams. They're very aggressive. They have size. So I think they're cut out very similarly to one another. The quarterbacks, the D-line, the O-line, that's a very interesting matchup. And then Seattle-Austin, I mean, that's, again, just very different approaches. More West Coast offenses, open it up, no huddle. So very 2 different games. But nonetheless, I'm just excited that the games mean something. In my previous league, toward the end of the season, there were a lot of times where your last 2-3 games did not have any playoff impact. This will speak directly to what happens to the playoffs. So, Jessica, look, you guys have set yourself up very nicely at 2-0, plus 44 point differential. And you yourself, young lady, I mean, a lot of people are talking about you possibly being the league MVP. We'll wrap it with just asking you that question. How would that feel to be the league MVP in the historic first ever season of the XLeague?
That would probably mean the world to me. I'd probably cry, but I'll save the tears for after the season's over and we get that ring. That would be a very honorable award, because I've been manifesting success in football and in this league for many years. So this is not something that has occurred overnight, and I'm prepared to accept it. But at the same time, there are lots of other athletes. So I'm just focused on working with my teammates, being a great teammate, a great leader, allowing my teammates to grow themselves and learn from them. And then we'll worry about the awards and accolades when we win the championship.
There you go. Spoken like a league MVP.
So I was going to say, keep playing how you've been playing. And
yeah,
pretty sure that'll just end up on your doorstep.
Putting up the numbers. I got to tell you, there's not a lot of individual players that I get texts and calls about from other coaches going, hey, tell me about this Jessica Salazar. Is she for real? What do you think? So she's one of the few that I've gotten those texts about. Well, listen, Jessica, we appreciate your first ever appearance on SLA. And best of luck to you and the Atlanta Empire as the season moves on.
Thank you. It was an honor to be on here, and I can't wait to continue playing with you guys. Thank you so much.
All right, that's Jessica Salazar, your middle linebacker and running back of the Atlanta Empire. You know, again, a very impressive young lady. And, you know, as a leader, they have several in that locker room in Atlanta. I think that's going to speak to how far their season goes because they have the talent. And I loved hearing what she said. You know, it doesn't matter where we go in, number 1, number 4. We're going to have to play people.
She's like, just who's up next?
Yeah.
We're ready.
And that's the mentality you've got to have. So that was Jessica Salazar of the Atlanta Empire. And that is our show in the can. We talked about FanPass, the playoff picture. Next week, we'll share with you, obviously, that'll be the big preview show for Chicago versus Seattle. And we'll definitely get an athlete on from either of those two teams and talk about the big playoff indicating matchup we'll have next week. So I want to thank Jessica Salazar for taking the time, Alex, and for Brendan, our in-studio producer. This is Mitch Mortal.